single dad, a powerful CEO, decides to hire a clown for his daughter's birthday party. But when the woman arrives, she reveals herself to be far more than just a performer in a colorful costume. The Archer estate gleamed in a dazzling array of gold and white, banners fluttering like whispers in the wind above the grand entrance gate. Balloons danced in perfect clusters, while a string quartet wove a delicate melody that drifted softly through the air, caressing the edges of the courtyard. This was more than a mere birthday celebration. It was a bold declaration, a showcase of opulence, sophistication, and meticulous orchestration. Within the opulent confines of the grand hall, servers clad in pristine white gloves glided through the crowd, their trays laden with exquisite hors d'oeuvre. Guests adorned in tailored suits and flowing designer gowns mingled, their laughter and whispers weaving an atmosphere thick with anticipation. Champagne bubbled as laughter danced through the air. Amidst the brilliance and the glow, she remained untouched by the radiance that surrounded her. 6-year-old Sophie Archer perched on the edge of a velvet chaise lounge, her small fingers tightly gripping a stuffed rabbit, its ears worn and frayed from countless adventures. Her blue party dress hung like a ghost, pristine and untouched, while her face wore a mask of emptiness, and her eyes drifted into an abyss far beyond the room. Not even the sweetest cake or the most regal crown could draw forth a smile, and the blinding flashes of cameras failed to elicit a single pose. She lingered in the shadows, a silent specter in a space crafted just for her presence. Serena Blackwood, the breathtaking and poised fiancée of Ethan Archer, approached him from behind, her fingers brushing against his arm with a gentle touch. "She must master the art of performance," she murmured, her voice a delicate whisper laced with unyielding strength. Smiling is an art, a vital tool she must master to navigate the complexities of our world as she grows. Ethan remained silent, his gaze locked onto Sophie, an unspoken tension hanging in the air between them. "She's not ready," he whispered, a shadow of concern flickering in his eyes. "Just a year has passed." Serena tilted her head, the brilliance of her diamond earrings shimmering as they captured the light from the grand chandelier above. "Grief is a heavy burden to bear, but this is something entirely different." The time stretched endlessly, a haunting echo of what once was. Ethan averted his gaze, tension coiling in his jaw. "We must push forward one moment at a time as the day unfolds before us." In that instant, a flustered woman burst onto the scene, her suitcase bursting at the seams with vibrant props, and atop her head sat a faded rainbow wig, a testament to her chaotic journey. Lila Hart was running behind schedule. Just 3 blocks from her destination, the bike chain had betrayed her, snapping with a metallic clatter. Undeterred, she sprinted the remaining distance, her oversized boots flapping with each hurried step, the urgency of her mission propelling her forward. The security guard positioned himself squarely in her path. "Are you lost?" Lila gasped, her breath hitching in her throat. "No, I am the jester, reserved for the celebration." Lila the Cloud. With a swift motion, she brandished a printed confirmation, its edges crumpled from her hurried escape. The guard's gaze pierced through her, laden with doubt and suspicion. In that moment, Serena glided toward them, her eyes piercing with intensity. "Is this the clown?" she inquired of the guard, then pivoted to Lila, her brow arched in silent challenge. "I had anticipated the arrival of someone who embodied cleanliness and punctuality." "I'm really sorry," Lila said, her fingers nervously adjusting her collar as the weight of her words hung in the air. "Despite the setbacks, I've arrived with a singular purpose: to create an unforgettable birthday for Sophie." Serena folded her arms tightly, a storm brewing in her eyes. "Whatever you do, don't let it spiral out of control." Lila offered a subtle nod before stepping inside, acutely aware of the heavy gaze of every onlooker as she moved through the room. Yet her gaze was fixated solely on one, Sophie. The little girl gazed upward, her eyes widening as Lila drew near. Lila knelt beside her, a spark of mischief in her eyes as she produced a sock puppet, its fabric worn yet full of character, and deftly slipped it over her hand. She exclaimed, her voice taking on a whimsical tone as she made the puppet wave, its movements playful and exaggerated. "My name is Benny. Today marks the day you step into the world of 6. Is that really true, or have I stumbled into the wrong gathering?" Sophie's eyes fluttered open, a moment of disbelief washing over her. For a fleeting moment, silence enveloped them, and then, almost imperceptibly, she nodded. Lila smiled, a genuine smile that lit up her face. That was a close call, a moment that could have spiraled into sheer embarrassment. The performance erupted with vibrant balloon animals twisting into life, followed by a cascade of silly voices that danced through the air. It culminated in a whimsical tale of a dancing chicken, lost in its own rhythm, who had forgotten the very essence of its cluck. As Lila twirled and tumbled, Sophie's laughter erupted, starting as a soft breath, blossoming into a giggle, and finally exploding into a cascade of unrestrained joy that reverberated off the marble walls, causing every adult in the room to halt in their tracks. Ethan Archer pivoted away from the conversation, his attention drawn to the source of the sound that pierced the air. He caught sight of his daughter, laughter spilling from her lips, pure and unrestrained, a sound he had longed to hear for what felt like an eternity. His heart raced, a sudden jolt of adrenaline coursing through him. He gazed at Lila, not as a mere clown, but as a figure who had ascended to a realm untouched by others. As the crowd erupted in applause and the joyous laughter of children filled the air, Lila gathered her belongings, a serene calm washing over her. She had accomplished her mission, the purpose that had driven her forward. Just as she was about to step out, a sudden realization struck her. Her hand puppets lay forgotten by the fountain, waiting in the shadows of the enchanting space inside. She slipped back in, a shadow among the crowd, her presence barely acknowledged by those around her. By the side hall, a voice sliced through the air, sharp and cold as ice. Not a single word about this to him. Do you understand? Lila stood motionless, her breath caught in her throat. Serena's voice echoed, drawing nearer with each heartbeat. If you breathe a word of our conversation to your father, I will take every single toy you cherish and toss them into the trash, all while wearing a smile. Sophie whimpered, her voice trembling with fear. Lila emerged from the shadows of the column, her heart racing with anticipation. That's it, no more. Serena pivoted, her expression shifting seamlessly into the carefully crafted facade she wore for the world. What did you just say? I heard everything, Lila said, her voice trembling yet unmistakably resolute. A child stood trembling, the weight of your threat hanging heavy in the air. That is a violation of trust and dignity. You're merely a jester, a fool in a painted mask. Do you honestly believe that anyone here would take your word over mine? Lila cast her gaze over the throng gathered in the courtyard. Her voice soared, cutting through the air like a blade. Forgive the interruption, but I must voice my thought. In the shadows, Serena Blackwood unleashes her cruelty upon Sophie, her actions hidden from the prying eyes of the world. Silence enveloped the room as the last note faded away. Words hung in the air, abruptly silenced, as if the very breath of life had been snatched away. All eyes were drawn. Ethan hurried through the throng, drawn by the rising clamor that beckoned him closer. What in the world is happening? Lila anchored herself firmly, unwavering in the face of uncertainty. I caught a glimpse of Serena's menacing words directed at your daughter. I couldn't remain silent, Serena gasped, her breath hitching in her throat. She's deceiving you, Ethan. Jealousy consumes her. She's determined to sabotage our engagement. Ethan's gaze locked onto Lila, his expression steely and unyielding. Your mission was to captivate and enthrall. But here you are, arriving late, looking disheveled, and somehow believing you have the answers for my child's future. I know what fear looks like, Lila whispered, her voice barely breaking the silence. Fear grips Sophie as she stands before her. Ethan's voice fell to a chilling whisper, laced with an unsettling intensity. Do you really believe you're a hero? You are a clown for hire. This house is not your home. Leave now. As the shadows deepened, security advanced, their presence looming ominously around her. Lila surrendered without a fight. She glanced at Sophie, who remained silently in the shadows, and offered a smile that masked the ache within. Within you lies a courage that surpasses your own understanding. As she was led away, Sophie hesitated, taking a bold step forward. Yet her voice was barely a whisper. No one caught the haunting whisper that slipped through her lips, a desperate plea woven into the silence. Don't go. Only the silence remained. The heavy oak doors of the Archer estate slammed shut behind Lila, sealing her fate with a chilling finality. She stood solitary on the cold stone steps, the distant laughter and vibrant music from within fading into a haunting echo with each shallow breath she took. Her hands trembled violently as she gripped the handle of her prop suitcase, a storm of anxiety brewing within her. The vivid hues of her clown makeup, now marred by silent tears, cascaded down her cheeks like the remnants of a battle lost. With each deliberate step toward the gate, she felt the weight of the world pressing down on her, each footfall echoing with a sense of foreboding. The flickering glow of the string lights cast an unflattering sheen on her costume, making it appear even more tattered and worn. Her heart pounded fiercely, not from the weight of shame, but from the deep ache of heartbreak. Inside, the party surged back to life, as if the earlier disturbance had been nothing more than a fleeting shadow. Serena, the consummate performer, unleashed her charisma, skillfully redirecting the atmosphere toward the cake cutting and the eager flash of cameras. Yet, Ethan's silence hung heavy in the air, his jaw tight with tension as his gaze lingered on the hallway, the very spot where Lila had stood just moments ago. The fire in her voice left an indelible mark, echoing in the silence long after she had spoken. Meanwhile, upstairs, a small face emerged cautiously from behind a curtain, eyes wide with curiosity and a hint of mischief. Sophie lingered at her bedroom window, her delicate fingers pressed against the cool glass, peering into the world beyond. Her eyes roamed the driveway below, piercing through the crowd, seeking that familiar face until, at last, she found the one she had been yearning for. Lila, the woman who knelt beside her, unleashed a flurry of silly voices, granting her the freedom to laugh, before rising to shield her when no one else dared to step forward. Sophie clutched the stuffed bunny in her arms, her fingers digging into its soft fabric, as if it were her only lifeline. Its left paw was marked by a delicate pink heart, a symbol Lila had sketched earlier, a silent promise that whispered, "This is your courage button." She clutched it tightly, pressing it softly against her heart, yearning for it to possess the power of true magic. As she descended, Lila finally arrived at the gate, her heart racing with anticipation. She hesitated at the threshold, the weight of the moment pulling her back as she cast one final glance over her shoulder. Her gaze ascended, sweeping over the windows, and then, in the dim light, a shadow lingered, small and motionless. Sophie stood at the edge of the world, her heart racing as the wind whipped through her hair. The horizon stretched endlessly before her, a canvas of possibilities waiting to be explored. With each breath, she felt the weight of her dreams pressing against her chest, urging her to take that first step into the unknown. The air crackled with anticipation, and in that moment, everything changed. Lila lifted her hand with deliberate slowness, a fragile wave escaping her trembling fingers. Sophie pressed her palm against the glass, feeling the cool surface beneath her skin, and then she turned back, her heart racing with anticipation. Only the stars bore witness to the event. Lila pressed on, her footsteps echoing in the silence that enveloped her. Silence enveloped her as she refrained from reaching out to anyone, leaving no trace of her thoughts in the digital realm. She made her way back to the cramped room she shared with her younger brother, nestled in the heart of the bustling town. The fluorescent kitchen light sputtered to life as she stepped inside, the kettle's shrill whistle cutting through the silence, echoing her arrival. Her brother lifted his gaze from the scattered pages of homework, a flicker of curiosity igniting in his eyes as he sensed her presence. The party was a whirlwind of laughter and music, a vibrant tapestry of colors and emotions that danced through the air. Each moment pulsed with energy, drawing everyone into its magnetic embrace. The atmosphere crackled with excitement, leaving an indelible mark on the night. Lila, her bag tumbled to the ground, sinking into her seat as a long-held breath escaped her lips, a release from the tension that had gripped her for far too long. She pressed the kitchen towel against her face, her eyes fixed on the swirling red, blue, and white as they bled into a haunting shade of gray. "I made a little girl laugh," she said softly, a hint of pride in her voice. "And I made a lot of adults uncomfortable," he smirked, the corners of his mouth curling with mischief. "That resonates with you." Lila remained silent, her expression unreadable. She propped her elbows on the table, her gaze lost in the depths of her thoughts. I was cast out for daring to speak the truth. Do you feel the weight of your choices?" She hesitated, her mind drifting to the haunting depth of Sophie's eyes. Her hand pressed against the window, a silent plea, as if she were reaching out, as if she understood the unspoken truth that lay beyond the glass. "No, I would do it all over again." Her conviction was unwavering. In life, there come pivotal moments when choices loom large, demanding a decision: to voice your truth, or to embrace silence, to take a stand, or to fade into the shadows. Lila had spoken, and though doubt lingered in the air, and the prospect of never performing at another birthday party loomed large, she had made her choice: to stand resolutely between a child and the encroaching shadows of fear. It held significance, even if the sole keeper of that memory was just 6 years old. In the suffocating silence of his bedroom, Ethan Archer found himself wide awake, surrounded by an overwhelming void. The moonlight poured through the towering windows, casting a silvery glow on the edge of the bed, untouched and undisturbed for more than a year. Yet tonight, it was not the silence that haunted him, but a voice that echoed in the darkness, weaving through his thoughts and keeping him wide awake. The haunting melody of Lila Hart's voice echoed through the air, weaving a spell that captivated all who heard it. Her words reverberated through his thoughts, haunting him like a ghost in the shadows. "I recognize the unmistakable visage of fear, and in Sophie's eyes there lies a deep-seated terror of her." He had cast her aside, stripped her of dignity before the crowd, yet the image of her, face adorned, eyes ablaze, quivering yet resolute, haunted him relentlessly. Nor would the gaze in his daughter's eyes ever fade. As the night deepened, and the last echoes of laughter faded into silence, Ethan slipped away to find Sophie. She had nestled deep into her blanket, clutching the stuffed rabbit tightly against her chest. Yet sleep eluded her. She stood frozen, her gaze unwavering as he stepped into the room. As he leaned in to press his lips against her forehead, a shiver coursed through her, causing her to flinch away. It was a whisper in the shadows, a fleeting sensation that slipped through his grasp, yet it lingered, echoing in the depths of his mind, like a relentless drumbeat. "Flinch, flinch." He jolted upright, fingers tangling in his tousled hair. The chill of the floor sent a shiver through him as he approached the window, his gaze piercing the stillness of the night beyond. Had he erred in his judgment? The following morning, he observed Sophie as she sat at the breakfast table. Serena sat at the head of the table, her immaculate attire commanding attention as she flipped through her phone, each swipe a tantalizing glimpse into a world beyond the gathering. Sophie sat in silence, her gaze fixed on her plate, absent-mindedly prodding at the food before her. "Sweetie," Serena said sharply, her voice cutting through the morning stillness, "eat your eggs before they turn cold." Sophie nodded, her gaze fixed on the ground, as if the weight of the world rested upon her shoulders. Ethan watched the exchange unfold, his silence heavy with anticipation. With a deliberate motion, he grasped the bottle of orange juice, pouring it slowly into Sophie's glass, each drop a careful act of intimacy. Her gaze shot up to meet his, a spark of astonishment flickering in her eyes. He smiled, but her lips remained a tight line, unyielding and cold. On that fateful day, he abruptly canceled 2 crucial meetings and retreated into the solitude of his home office. He craved to uncover the depths that lay beyond. He craved a deeper glimpse into the unknown. With each passing moment of observation, his awareness deepened, revealing layers he had never seen before. Serena's sharp words cut through the air, her impatience with the staff more palpable than he recalled. With a flick of her wrist, she dismissed Sophie's inquiries, her voice cutting through the air like a knife, as she reprimanded her for daring to intrude upon the serious discussions of adults. He once caught her snatching the remote from the child's grasp, her voice sharp as she declared, "No cartoons. It's time for you to embrace the maturity that comes with your years." Sophie remained silent, her resolve unbroken. With a quiet determination, she stepped out of the room, leaving an air of unresolved tension in her wake. As the week drew to a close, Ethan picked up the phone and dialed his trusted private assistant, Greg. "I need someone discreet," he said, his voice low and urgent, "to watch over everything when I'm away, particularly when it comes to Sophie." Greg remained silent, the question lingering unspoken in the air. He merely uttered one word, understood. Ethan loathed the reality he found himself in, forced to delve into the secrets of his own fiancée. The signs had been there all along, but he had turned a blind eye, ensnared by trust, captivated by charm, and driven by the yearning to piece together a life that appeared perfect from the outside. Yet, as darkness enveloped the house that night, he found himself halting outside Sophie's door. The door stood slightly ajar, a whisper of mystery beckoning from within. In the dim light of the room, Sophie sat on the floor, clad in her soft pajamas, cradling the worn stuffed rabbit in her arms. She was lost in her drawing. He edged nearer, his movements deliberate, intent on not alarming her. A haunting image filled the page. A girl clad in a vibrant clown costume, her hand intertwined with that of a small stick figure adorned with a bow, their connection both whimsical and eerie. They beamed at each other, their smiles radiant and infectious, lighting up the space around them. In the drawing, only two figures emerged from the shadows: the clown, with its haunting grin, and the girl, her innocence stark against the eerie backdrop. There was no third presence. No adult with polished hair and a perfect dress to offer comfort or protection. Just the unsettling duo, locked in a moment that felt both timeless and chilling. Ethan sensed a deep, unsettling twist within him, an ancient whisper that had long been silenced, a truth he could no longer afford to ignore. Pressing his back against the cool wall, he took a moment to gather his thoughts, the weight of the world pressing down on him. He had sent Lila away, yet the haunting truth lingered. She had never truly departed. The weekend sun poured through the lush canopy of trees at the community park, casting dappled shadows on the ground below. The afternoon stretched languidly, each moment hanging in the air like a sweet melody. Children's laughter danced between the benches, while the enticing aroma of kettle corn wafted from a nearby cart, wrapping the scene in a warm embrace. After months of waiting, Ethan Archer finally had Sophie all to himself for their first outing together. In that moment, the world faded away. No rigid schedules, no watchful security, no fiancé casting a shadow. It was just a father and daughter, a simple picnic blanket spread across the grass, and an old sketch pad that Ethan had carefully tucked into his coat pocket, hoping to ignite the spark of creativity in Sophie once more. Since their arrival, Sophie had hardly uttered a word. She stood silently, her gaze fixed on the children soaring through the air on the swing sets, her face a mask of mystery. The rabbit, a constant companion, was held tightly in her arms, a silent witness to the scene unfolding before her. Just as Ethan was about to extend the invitation, a familiar sing-song voice floated through the air, weaving its way across the park. Who dares to claim a balloon shaped like a dinosaur, only to discover it morphs into a spaghetti monster instead? Sophie's head jerked upward, her senses suddenly alert. Across the expanse of green, a vibrant figure stood at the center of a loose circle of laughter and joy. She was not clad in a full clown costume this time, but her suspenders draped over a striped shirt added a playful touch. A painted heart adorned one cheek, and her frizzy ponytail danced with every lively step she took, drawing the children's delighted gazes like moths to a flame. Lal heart. Sophie rose silently, her resolve palpable in the air around her. In that moment, she took off, her feet pounding against the ground as adrenaline surged through her veins. In an instant, Ethan's mind struggled to grasp the unfolding chaos, as Sophie charged toward Lila, her arms wrapping tightly around her waist in a fierce embrace. Lila's body tensed, a jolt of surprise coursing through her. Then she glanced down, her body going rigid. Sophie, she inhaled deeply. Sophie drew back slightly, her gaze locking onto hers with an intensity that spoke volumes. Every moment without you felt like an eternity. Ethan rose from the bench, each step deliberate and measured as he approached them. A storm of uncertainty swirled within him, leaving him grappling for the right words, the right actions. He braced himself for Lila to pull back, to turn and disappear into silence. She remained silent. With a tender touch, she lifted the headband adorned with the tiny rainbow propeller from her hair, kneeling down to meet Sophie's gaze, their eyes locking in a moment of connection. The warmth of your absence lingered, and I found myself yearning for you, my radiant light. Their smiles intertwined, creating a world where nothing else mattered. With determination, Lila rose to her feet and locked eyes with Ethan. A palpable tension filled the air. Her expression remained stoic, unwavering, as if she were carved from stone. Her gaze locked onto his, a silent challenge hanging in the air as she deliberately peeled away the final layers of her costume. The painted heart on her cheek, smudging against the fabric of her shirt as it vanished from view. "I'm not here to ask for anything," she declared, her voice a gentle yet unwavering whisper that hung in the air, charged with unspoken resolve. "And I don't want your apology," Ethan choked out, his voice trapped beneath the weight of guilt surging in his throat. Lila pressed on, her voice unwavering. "I yearn to know that she is truly safe, that someone is genuinely witnessing her essence, not the grades she achieves, not the forced smile she wears, not the flawless photo captured, but the real, unguarded her." Ethan's voice emerged, gravelly and raw, cutting through the silence like a jagged edge. "It's been ages since she wore that smile, the one that lit up her face, a memory now shadowed by your absence." Lila nodded, her gaze steady and contemplative, as if weighing the gravity of the moment. "Perhaps it's time to ensure that those who cause her pain linger for no longer than those who bring her solace." They remained motionless, enveloped in an eerie stillness. Lila withheld a business card. She kept the party a secret. She didn't remind him that he had thrown her out like trash. With a tender grip, she lingered on Sophie's hand for a heartbeat longer, before slowly beginning to turn away, the weight of unspoken words hanging in the air. Ethan halted her in her tracks. "Lila," she glanced over her shoulder. His expression had transformed, revealing a vulnerability that was both unexpected and captivating. The walls loomed ominously, their surfaces marred by deep, jagged cracks that whispered of impending collapse. "I have no idea what your plans are for later," he said, his voice faltering, uncertainty hanging in the air. "Yet, if you ever find yourself yearning to share more moments with Sophie, officially, it would be my utmost honor." Lila gazed down at Sophie, who met her gaze with eyes brimming with hope, a silent plea shimmering within their depths. And that was the sole reason she nodded. Not for Ethan, but for the little girl who had once pressed her hand against a window, sealing a silent promise between them. Lila found herself unexpectedly back at the Archer estate, a place steeped in memories and secrets. As she neared the well-known front steps, her fingers gripped the strap of her weathered leather bag with a fierce intensity, her breath escaping in soft wisps against the crisp morning air. Each brick, each window, each meticulously trimmed hedge echoed the haunting memory of her humiliation, the day she had been escorted out, not merely as an unwelcome guest, but as a looming threat. She had meticulously rehearsed every word, crafting her response for the moment they might confront her. She steeled herself, ready to stride away with her dignity unscathed if they dared to turn her back. But no one did. It was Ethan who had swung the door wide open. Today, he donned no suit. Instead, a simple sweater and jeans enveloped him, while his expression flickered with an almost human authenticity, a glimpse of something genuine beneath the surface. "Thank you for coming," he murmured, his voice a hushed whisper, yet brimming with genuine emotion. Lila offered a subtle nod, her eyes glinting with unspoken thoughts. "This is for Sophie," she whispered, her voice barely breaking the silence. And in that moment it was undeniably true. The arrangement was deceptively simple. A few afternoons each week, after the school bell rang. It involved snacks, homework, and the delicate dance of bedtime routines. There were no obligations, no promises whispered in the dark, and certainly no closeness to complicate the fragile balance they maintained. But from the moment Lila stepped back into that house, the walls exhaled a sigh of relief, the air shifted, and so did Sophie. In just a matter of days, the little girl who had once curled into herself like a question mark began to blossom, revealing the vibrant spirit hidden within. As she brushed her teeth, her voice filled the air with a melody, each note a spark of happiness. With a playful hand, she sketched smiley faces on napkins, infusing the mundane with whimsy. The moment Lila arrived, she dashed to the door, her heart racing, not from obligation, but from pure, unbridled joy. The house staff were the first to notice, their whispers weaving through the air like secrets. They spoke of the change in Sophie, how she no longer walked but skipped with an infectious joy, her bunny clutched tightly in one hand, while the other wrapped around Lila's waist, a gesture that spoke volumes of newfound affection. Lila arrived with an explosion of color, crayons spilling from her arms, shoeboxes stacked precariously, paper towel rolls tumbling behind her, and an avalanche of glitter that sparkled like stars in the daylight, always far too much glitter. With her guidance, Sophie crafted magnificent cardboard castles and conjured invisible kingdoms, realms where kindness reigned supreme and laughter echoed freely, unrestrained by any boundaries. Her lullabies, though scratchy and off-tune, enveloped the room in a cocoon of warmth. Each night, she wove tales for Sophie, her voice growing hoarse as the stories danced in the air, until the little girl's laughter faded into soft giggles and her eyes fluttered shut, surrendering to the embrace of sleep. As dusk settled, Ethan found himself lingering at home, the shadows stretching across the room like whispers of secrets yet to be uncovered. Initially, it seemed like a harmless attempt to catch up on work. Laptop perched on the couch, a phone call echoing from the home office. Yet, as time slipped away, the excuses dwindled, and he found himself lingering, drawn into a world that felt increasingly like home. At times he found himself pausing outside Sophie's door, drawn in by the whispers that danced within. Lila's voice floated in the air, a melody that stirred something deep within him, awakening a longing he hadn't realized was there. "You're safe now, sweetheart," she whispered, her voice a soothing balm as Sophie surrendered to the embrace of sleep. Her words hung in the air, heavy with conviction, as if they had been whispered in the dark countless times before, perhaps to her own reflection, or to an audience that remained forever oblivious. As twilight descended, Ethan strolled past the living room, his steps faltering as he caught sight of something that drew him in. Lila and Sophie nestled on the floor, their legs crossed, immersed in a vibrant world of crayons and coloring books that sprawled around them like a colorful landscape waiting to be brought to life. The light enveloped the scene in a gentle embrace, while the air hung still, thick with anticipation. Ethan lingered in the shadows, a silent observer, invisible to the world around him. "Does purple grass exist?" Sophie asked, her chin tilted in curiosity. "In some worlds it does," Lila replied, her voice carrying a weight of untold stories. "In yours?" Lila's smile was unwavering, particularly when it met my gaze. Ethan's smile mirrored the warmth of the moment. A flicker of warmth ignited within him, a sensation long buried, now awakening from its deep slumber. As dawn broke, he caught sight of Lila, her figure poised by the shoe bench, deftly tying Sophie's laces with a tender focus. As a soft melody floated through the air, Sophie nestled her small head against Lila's shoulder, a gesture that felt as instinctive as breathing. Ethan lingered in the hallway, cloaked in invisibility, yet in that fleeting moment, he felt an undeniable surge of presence, more vivid than he had experienced in ages. He started crafting excuses to return home sooner, a postponed meeting, a spreadsheet he could wrap up on his iPad, anything to join her for dinner, anything to witness her gently pour milk into Sophie's cereal, her hands steady and kind. As their conversations deepened, they found themselves drawn into the tapestry of each other's lives. They started with Sophie, her nights now peaceful, her appetite growing. Then, like threads weaving together, they shared snippets of their pasts, favorite books that had shaped them, cherished cartoons that sparked nostalgia, and the tales of the worst jobs that had tested their resolve. Then emerged the profound tales. Lila recounted tales of her brother, weaving a narrative of struggle as she pieced together work to cover the mounting hospital bills. Life had sculpted her into a force of nature, teaching her to raise her voice when silence reigned, and to show tenderness when the world grew harsh. Ethan shared with her the profound silence that enveloped him after his wife's death, an aching stillness that pressed down on him. He spoke of the exhausting facade he wore, striving to appear composed, while he felt himself fracturing within. He recounted the missteps he had taken, not only as a father but as a man gripped by the fear of opening his heart once more. Lila stood unwavering, her gaze steady and unyielding. She offered no judgment, only the gift of her undivided attention, listening with a depth that felt almost sacred. In that moment, it struck him with the force of a revelation. She didn't merely grasp Sophie's essence. She saw right into his soul. In the stillness of the night, long after Sophie had surrendered to slumber, they found themselves seated at the kitchen table, the remnants of tea cooling in their hands. Their shoulders sagged in a familiar, unguarded manner, a silent testament to the intimacy that flourished when pretense faded away. He gazed at her, no longer seeing the woman adorned in face paint and balloons, nor the fleeting presence of temporary help, but as a force that had irrevocably altered the cadence of his existence. She hadn't demolished barriers. Instead, she wove through the fissures, softly, tenderly, like a stream seeking its rightful course. Somewhere between the echoes of her laughter in the hallway and the soft, tender good nights, she murmured. His heart began to lean in, not with a thunderous crash or blazing fire, but with a gentle warmth, a profound truth. Each time she rose to leave, a quiet voice seemed to whisper, "Stay." The house lay in a deep hush, the clock striking well past midnight, a stillness that enveloped the space like a heavy blanket, only emerging after the echoes of footsteps and laughter had long since dissipated into the shadows. Yet Ethan Archer remained wide awake. He lay restless, twisting and turning in the suffocating silence, the clock's numbers glowing ominously in the darkness, each tick a reminder of time's cruel stagnation. A restless energy coursed through him, an unsettling force that transcended the burdens of work and the familiar weight of worry. He quietly slipped out of bed, the cool floor sending a shiver up his spine as he pulled on a sweatshirt and made his way downstairs, each step a whisper in the stillness of the night. A warm glow of amber light spilled from beneath the kitchen door, beckoning with a promise of secrets waiting to be uncovered. With a deliberate motion, he eased the door open, the creak echoing in the stillness. Lila sat at the table, her back slightly hunched, a small lamp casting a warm, golden halo around her silhouette. With meticulous precision, she threaded the needle, her fingers deftly maneuvering the tiny patch onto the worn elbow of Sophie's cherished blue sweater, each stitch a whisper of care and nostalgia. Her gaze shot upward, a flicker of surprise crossing her face. "My apologies, I didn't intend to disturb anyone's slumber." "You didn't," Ethan said, his voice barely above a whisper, the weight of unspoken thoughts hanging in the air. "Couldn't sleep?" Lila's lips curled into a faint smile as her gaze fell back to the needle poised delicately in her hand. "I had the same thought. I intended to resolve this before dawn broke." She clings to this sweater with an unyielding affection, unable to let it go. Ethan crossed the threshold, the door creaking softly behind him as he leaned against the counter, the weight of the world pressing down on his shoulders. "You never had to do that. I understand," she said softly, her voice laced with a quiet determination. "That's precisely why I felt compelled to." He observed her intently, her fingers dancing with a silent, meticulous grace. Her work exuded a soothing aura, reminiscent of warm tea on a rainy evening, gentle and reassuring, never demanding distance yet, always providing a sense of safety. "May I take a seat?" he inquired, his voice laced with curiosity. Lila's gaze shot upward, her eyes wide with astonishment. "Absolutely." In the stillness, they lingered, the soft whisper of thread weaving through fabric, the sole sound binding them together. With a heavy breath, Ethan shattered the stillness that enveloped them. "Your skills in this are impressive. My grandmother imparted her wisdom to me, sharing the art of sewing, the secrets of cooking, and the delicate skill of checking the soup's temperature without scalding my tongue." He let out a chuckle, the sound echoing with a hint of irony. "I find that fascinating. Life skills." Lila shot a quick, sidelong glance at him. He blinked, a curious smile playing on his lips. "You laugh differently at night. Is that a blessing or a curse?" It's just real," she said, her fingers brushing against the fabric of the sweater as she set it down, a weight lifted from her shoulders, as if you're fighting to keep your breath steady while the entire world gazes upon you. Ethan hesitated, the silence stretching between them like a taut wire, waiting for the spark of his response. His gaze fell to the table, then shifted to her hands, delicately poised beside the neatly folded sweater. After a heavy silence, he finally spoke, his voice low and deliberate. "You're good with her. With Sophie, that is, surpassing all others I've encountered." Lila's expression melted into a gentle warmth. "She captivates the heart effortlessly, Ethan. For far too long, silence has been her only companion." With a subtle nod, he acknowledged the weight of the moment. Yet, the act of trying and the presence of being are not always intertwined. Ethan allowed the words to linger in the air, heavy with unspoken meaning. They were spoken not with accusation, but with raw honesty, a truth that pierced the heart, yet offered a balm for the soul. Silence enveloped them once more, a heavy shroud that thickened the air between their unspoken thoughts. Suddenly, the soft patter of tiny feet echoed through the hallway, reverberating against the polished hardwood floor. Sophie crept closer, her hair a wild tangle, eyes fluttering open to adjust to the shadows that enveloped her. "Father," Ethan rose to his feet. "My dear, what troubles you?" "I had a dream," she murmured, her voice barely above a whisper as she approached him, burying her face in the warmth of his sweater. "The darkness wraps around me, a heavy blanket of silence, but sleep eludes me like a fleeting shadow. My mind races, thoughts swirling in a chaotic dance, refusing to settle. The night stretches on, an endless expanse of wakefulness, each tick of the clock echoing in the stillness, a reminder of the rest I cannot grasp." Lila extended her hand with a delicate touch. "Care to join us for a moment?" Sophie nodded and nestled into her lap, as if it were the most instinctive act in the universe. Lila embraced her tightly, her hand gently pressed against the girl's back, thumb moving in soft, soothing circles. A few minutes later, Sophie raised her head, her voice barely above a whisper. "I made you a drawing, did you?" Ethan inquired, his voice laced with curiosity. With a subtle nod, she retrieved a crumpled piece of paper from the depths of her pajama pocket. With deliberate care, he unfolded it, each crease whispering secrets of the past. Crayons, vibrant and irregular, yet brimming with soul. 3 figures stood together, their hands intertwined, a silent bond that spoke volumes in the stillness of the moment. A tall man stood alongside a woman with fiery red hair, while a small girl clung to their side. Above them loomed a massive red heart, casting a vibrant shadow over their gathering. Ethan stared at it, his breath hitching in his chest. Lila averted her gaze, her cheeks burning with a deep flush. She turned to me, her eyes searching, and asked, "What does love look like?" I whispered to her that it seems like those who linger are the ones who truly belong. Ethan's gaze flickered to her, captivated by the gentle contours of her face, illuminated by the warm glow of the kitchen lamp. "Do you really believe that's who we are?" Lila locked eyes with him, a silent challenge sparking between them. It seems to be the very thing she yearns for. With meticulous care, he folded the drawing, each crease deliberate, before laying it gently on the table, as if it held a secret waiting to be unveiled. "The picture is beautiful," he murmured, his voice barely above a whisper. "Everything." Lila's smile danced across her lips, a flicker of warmth in the cool air. She possesses an uncanny ability to uncover the hidden tales that lie beneath the surface. Ethan's gaze fell upon Sophie, who was peacefully nestled against Lila's shoulder, lost in a serene slumber. Once more, a soft whisper stirred within his heart. "You do too." The Archer residence had descended into an unsettling silence in recent weeks. Ethan returned home sooner than expected. His smile grew more frequent, lighting up his face with an infectious warmth. Sophie's laughter rang out, a melody of joy that filled the air around her. And what of Lila? Lila lingered in the shadows, neither a guest nor a hired hand, but something far more enigmatic. She had become an integral note in the symphony of life. Yet beneath the surface of satisfaction, discontent brewed among some. Serena Blackwood, once a queen of the hallways, her heels striking the ground with a resonant authority, had transformed into a figure of icy precision, her demeanor as cutting as the sharpest blade. Her smiles, once genuine, now felt like a mask, and her touch had taken on an unsettling grip. Ethan had observed the delicate adjustments she made, the fleeting glances she cast at Lila when the world was oblivious, and the way Sophie's body coiled with tension the moment Serena stepped into the room. As dusk settled over the city, Ethan slipped through the door, his arrival unexpected and shrouded in the mystery of a board meeting that had been abruptly postponed. He slipped through the side entrance, anticipation crackling in the air as he braced himself for the silence that awaited him. Instead, a cacophony of shouting pierced the air. He crept toward the living room, each footfall deliberate, the voices sharpened, cutting through the silence like a blade. "Do you truly believe you can take my place?" Serena let out a sharp hiss, the sound slicing through the silence like a blade. Strolling through this house as if you have every right to be here, you are nothing more than a mere afterthought, a token presence draped in borrowed elegance and faded threads. Then another voice emerged, quivering yet resolute. Lila, I have no intention of taking anyone's place. I will do everything in my power to protect Sophie. Ethan burst into the hallway, his heart racing as the chilling sound of something sharp sliced through the air. Serena's voice dripped with venom. Do you really believe you've stepped into the role of a mother? Lay a finger on her once more, and I promise you will regret it. Suddenly, a piercing scream shattered the silence. Sophie's world was a tapestry of secrets and shadows, each thread woven with the whispers of her past. The air around her crackled with unspoken tension, as if the very walls held their breath, waiting for the next chapter to unfold. Every glance, every heartbeat, pulsed with the promise of adventure and the thrill of the unknown. Ethan stormed into the room, his presence electrifying the air around him. Serena's fingers wove fiercely through Sophie's hair, pulling the child back with a sudden, brutal force as Lila lunged forward, desperate to protect her. Let her go, Ethan commanded, his voice sharp and cutting through the tension like a knife. Serena stood motionless, her breath caught in her throat. Lila remained frozen in place. Sophie, her eyes wide with terror, trembled as a soft whimper escaped her lips. Ethan stepped into the room with deliberate slowness, exuding a calm confidence, as if he were a man who had already sealed his fate. He fixed his gaze on Serena and asked her if she believed she could take your place. But here's the twist. She is under no obligation to do so. Serena's eyes fluttered open, a moment of uncertainty washing over her. Ethan stood at the edge of the world, the weight of his choices heavy on his shoulders. He raised a hand. Because she embraces her true self without a mask. You exist. In the stillness, a profound silence enveloped the air, thick and heavy, as if the world itself held its breath, waiting for something to break the spell. You embodied the role flawlessly. They were the ideal companion, with a flawless grin that could light up any room, effortlessly navigating the glitzy charity galas. But I see you now, all of you. Serena's voice trembled with emotion. Well, your words are lost on you. With a determined stride, Ethan advanced into the unknown. Absolutely not, but I'm certain of what my eyes have witnessed, and I've had someone delving into the rest. Her face drained of color. He spoke of the vanished funds from the Archer Foundation scholarship branch, a mystery that hung heavy in the air. The counterfeit invoices, the clandestine alliances crafted in your name. She parted her lips, yet silence enveloped her, as if the very air had stolen her voice. Ethan pivoted sharply, his gaze locking onto the shadowy expanse of the hallway ahead. They are coming, and time is running out. The sirens wailed in the distance, a haunting echo of urgency that sliced through the stillness of the night. Shadows danced as the blue and red lights flickered, illuminating the scene with a stark, electric intensity. The air was thick with tension, every heartbeat a countdown to the unknown that lay ahead. The police were here, and with them came the weight of authority and the promise of answers, but also the specter of danger lurking just beyond the edge of the light. Serena's expression contorted, morphing into a mask of cold intensity that was utterly foreign. With a final seething glare directed at Lila, she turned on her heel and charged toward the door, colliding with the officers as they stepped into the front hall. Ethan hesitated, his feet rooted to the ground as the world around him faded into a blur. He sank to his knees instead. Sophie's body shook with lingering tremors. Lila knelt beside her, enveloping the child in a warm embrace. Ethan extended his hand, a silent plea hanging in the air. I'm here, he whispered, his voice barely breaking the silence of the night. Sophie pivoted with a hesitant grace, her heart racing in the silence that enveloped her. As she gazed deeply into her father's eyes, a wave of emotion surged within her, compelling her to throw herself into his embrace. He clutched her fiercely, as if the very act could erase the months of distance that had grown between them. Lila leaned back, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. Then Sophie turned toward her, her voice barely above a whisper, yet laced with a courage that felt monumental. Fear has lost its grip on me. Lila smiled, and this time, She lingered, the air thick with unspoken promises. The table stood small and unassuming, enveloped in the dim glow of a solitary candle. There were no guests to fill the silence, no dazzling chandeliers to reflect light, no servers gliding by in crisp white gloves, and no joyous clinking of champagne glasses. Instead, the flickering flame danced, casting golden shadows that played across the surface of a wooden table, its smoothness a testament to countless meals shared. 3 mismatched dinner plates held the simple yet heartfelt dishes that Lila had lovingly prepared, each one a piece of her story, waiting to unfold. Her grandmother's rosemary roasted chicken, the aroma rich and inviting, sat at the center of the table. Sophie's favorite mashed potatoes, creamy and glistening with extra butter, beckoned alongside soft dinner rolls, still warm from the oven, their steam curling gently into the hushed atmosphere. This was no ordinary celebration. In the stillness of the evening, there were no tuxedos, no photographers, no speeches. Only Ethan, Lila, and Sophie. 3 chairs stood in a quiet room, and an unspoken tension hung in the air, as warm and gentle as the fading light that enveloped them. Sophie's laughter danced through the air as she stretched out her small hand, her fingers grazing Lila's in a fleeting moment of connection. "This surpassed any fancy restaurant," she declared, her face radiating with the pure honesty that only a child could possess. Lila's laughter danced through the air, a soft melody that hinted at secrets untold. "I'll interpret that as a glowing 5-star endorsement." Ethan's gaze lingered on them, the fork in his hand suspended in mid-air, lost to the world around him. Lila's laugh danced through the room, a melodic embrace that anchored everyone in its warmth, effortless and enchanting. Sophie radiated a warmth that enveloped her, a glow born from the depths of genuine safety. He let the fork clatter onto the plate, the sound slicing through the silence. With a deliberate slowness, as if the very act could alter the course of fate, he slipped his hand into the inner pocket of his jacket and retrieved a small velvet box. Lila's eyes grew wide with astonishment. She remained utterly still. He hesitated, the weight of the unopened letter heavy in his hands. His fingers hovered above the lid, trembling with uncertainty. Yet his eyes remained locked onto hers, unyielding. "I remember the first time I laid eyes on you," Ethan murmured, his voice dropping to a hushed whisper. "Your head was crowned with a vibrant rainbow wig, and a splash of paint adorned your nose." Lila felt a rush of warmth flood her cheeks as a nervous laugh escaped her lips. "It wasn't my best look," he said with a grin that hinted at mischief. "You appeared as a whirlwind of disorder, adorned in shimmering brilliance." Then he fell silent. "Yet you were the sole person who truly perceived Sophie. It wasn't her vision at all. She was not the child anyone had anticipated, only her." She wasn't told to smile. You chose not to mend her shattered pieces. You simply allowed her to exist in her own world. Lila blinked, a tightness coiling in her throat. You didn't merely bring a smile to her face. He pressed on. In that moment, you restored her voice, a gift that echoed with newfound power. And you bestowed upon me my own too, as he lifted the lid of the box. Within lay a simple silver band, unadorned yet profoundly honest, its understated elegance whispering secrets of devotion and timelessness. "I'm not searching for perfection," he declared. "I crave raw authenticity, unrefined and unfiltered. I crave authenticity. I yearn for the one who remained, who stood by my side in the darkest moments, who held on to faith in a little girl when the world turned its back." His voice quivered with an unsteady intensity. "Lila, you were never merely the clown we brought on board. You are the one my heart has chosen, the only one it desires." Lila pressed her hand against her mouth, her other hand quaking nervously on her lap. Her eyes glistened, brimming with unshed tears. In that fleeting moment, as silence enveloped them, Sophie's hand moved instinctively across the table, her fingers brushing against Ethan's sleeve with a gentle tug that spoke volumes. "I choose her too," she whispered, her voice barely breaking silence, laden with a weight that hung in the air like a promise yet to be fulfilled. Lila's tears cascaded down her cheeks, yet her smile shone brightly through the storm of emotions. "It seems the odds are stacked against me." With a deliberate motion, Ethan extended his arm across the table, his fingers intertwining with hers, a silent promise hanging in the air between them. She guided him forward. In that fleeting moment, the world faded away. No blinding spotlights, no grand stage, no audience to bear witness. It was just a small family, united not by blood, but by the strength of their choices, the bravery that coursed through their veins, and a love that had weathered storms of doubt, yet remained unyielding, refusing to be silenced. Home isn't always where you take your first breath. Sometimes it's the sanctuary you create alongside those who fiercely support you, even in the darkest moments when the world turns away. In the shadows of doubt, a single soul emerges, daring to challenge the tide of disbelief. With unwavering courage, they rise to defend the truth, igniting a spark of hope in a world that has turned its back. Lila was more than a mere clown. She shone brightly amidst the shadows, a voice that emerged in the silence of a child's despair, and a heart that mended not only a little girl, but transformed an entire family. If this tale stirred your soul, rekindled your faith in the strength of compassion, or ignited your belief in the possibility of redemption, we beckon you to remain with us. Join the journey with soul-stirring stories, where every tale unfolds with raw emotion, showcasing the depths of love, the strength of courage, and the power of redemption. Narratives that captivate the mind and linger in the heart, long after the last word is read. In the quiet corners of our lives, it is often the most unassuming tales that hold the power to rescue us from the depths of despair. Until we meet again in the next chapter.